explain something to you all. Okay? Let me explain. Let me explain why I am so shocked at what NRS is doing. Okay? Now, let me preface this English language hard. All right? Let me preface this for I respect the heck out of NRS. Okay? I understand the sides of the devs in terms of like that there's a process to everything, and it's not just as like black or white that the community, especially on Twitter, have. Okay? Hi, Adam. I also want to mention this. Twitter and these social spaces are not a real place. Okay? They are not a real place to be addressing concerns and like having these full discussions. Truthfully, having this discussion on my stream is simply because I have the control here to actually moderate the conversations that happen. So when someone goes out of pocket or out of line, bam, you're out of here. Okay? You can't do that on Twitter, which is why there's a lot of the times I do not say stuff because Twitter is not a real place. And I specifically say Twitter because that's where everybody is. Now, with that in mind, NRS, what in God's mew were you thinking with Cyrax being the way that it is? Listen, I think it's fair for everyone here, okay, to know that Cyrax being reverted in terms of changes, it's not a bad thing. I will 100% agree that Cyrax should come back. It is good for the game. And I 1000% agree. I 1000% agree. Especially because you now have cameos that are at that same level. You have Chameleon, you have Kano, you have Tremor, you have Movado. You actually have cameos that are really, really strong. Now, mind you, I understand why a lot of people, or actually, better said, I understand why the change happened in the first place, but this is why I had agreed with people that it should have not happened in the first place, because it was too early for the game. The game had not been fully discovered. So what was technically broken when it came to like chip damage like Raiden and Baraka ended up being that they had to nerf the character kits. And this is something that I have always said. The nerfs should not be on the cameo. The nerf should be on the kit of the character, because the character is the one that has the full tool set. The cameo does not. The cameo helps whatever it helps the character. That is why some characters mesh really well with characters. Our cameo meshes well with a specific character, and why other cameos do not. There's a reason why I don't use Movado and Nitara. I love Movado. I love my man. But I'm not using it on Nitara when it makes no sense to use it on her. You already get a good juggle for a really good damage. You already have a low health deficit. There's no reason to go any further for 850 for what? A fun, like, gimmicky type build? No, if you're competitive, you're going to realize that. And if you're competitive, you're going to use what works, okay? Once again, Cyrax should not have been touched as early as they did. If anything, it should have been that it was Raiden and Baraka that needed, and these are just the two because they were like the most, they're like the most that offenders at that time, which is why Cyrax got nerfed in the first place. That chip damage should have been looked at before, not 2 patches ago. Okay, Kenshi and Cyrax was always there. It was actually always there even after the nerf. What do we need to look at? Not Cyrax. We need to look at Kenshi. How come Kenshi can summon Sento for 0 bar and resummon Sento for 0 bar and still do it on block string? That's the problem. Not that Cyrax was the problem. Okay, so let's start with that. once again, for anybody tuning in, okay, my problem with the change in Cyrax that was reverted is not because of the changes itself. I actually think that this is the most healthy decision in terms of reverting the cameo back, because we have stronger cameos. And my thing is, if you're going to go for balance changes, it should be on the main character, not on the cameo. Okay? We're all on the same page, right? Keep it with me here. My second point, though, and why I'm upset. How in God's name, okay? How in God's name do you think it's a good idea to allow that change for final combat? Not even, and I'm going to count the days since it was announced, because it was announced late at night at around 8 p.m. Eastern on a Friday, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days before final combat. Okay, now I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here and explain why they can't just do a change. Okay, for starters, on the devil's advocate side, as a developer, when you have released an update, it is hard to roll back a game from an update. The reason being is that there is, and then mind you, this is also on a new engine that they have been working. A lot of people have been like, oh, you know, why are we missing like certain features, and like, where's this, where's that, where had crossplay been, why didn't it be? That's because NRS went from Unity to Unreal, number one. If you're a game developer, you would actually know, and this is why people don't know and why Twitter is not a real space, okay? Thank you for the follow. This is why Twitter is not a real space, okay? People would know that when you switch from one game engine that is completely different than the one that you have been using for the last 20 years minimum, okay? Going to a new game engine is very, very difficult. It is very difficult for you to switch from one game engine to another, okay? That's number one. Just because you're taking assets from a previous game engine does not mean you have a full game. This is the other reason why when Multiverses was released, it's considered a brand new game, because it is on a brand new engine, okay? That is also why they've been having some problems too, because there are bugs that you wouldn't find in the previous engine that will come out in this engine. So yes, they do have that, I don't want to say excuse, but there is a reason why we don't have the Warrior Shrine yet. We only have one piece set of gear pieces that we can actually change in this game. And we also, there's a reason why crossplay and actual like training, like the training modes that we used to have, that is why it's not there. That's also probably why they went for a crypt mode, an invasions mode that's a bit easier to handle versus a full-on crypt mode or open world mode that could have been available for a previous engine. They are literally learning. Now, the second thing that's also devil's advocate, Homelander was released on Tuesday, okay? In order for them to find and diagnose the problem, they have to run a set of tests. And this is why it's so important, okay, for you to actually report and show video on how specific bugs were made. The reason why is because if you don't do that and you just report the actual like issue, they have to then go through a series of like, okay, I did this, and this. Did this create the bug? No, it didn't. I did this, and this, and this. Did this create the bug? No, it didn't. Okay, let me try changing this. It is literally called QA for a reason. They are going through a set of checklists to try to recreate the bugs that we have found. And if we don't actually give them video and full description of how those bugs came to be, it is extremely difficult for them to actually fix the bug. Okay, and it's very time consuming. That's also probably why they didn't say anything on the release on Wednesday or on Thursday, because they were spending those 2 days trying to figure out what those bugs were. Okay, again, should it have been tested before? Honestly, it's the new engine. They're always going to be on a time crunch, and sometimes some of these bugs don't become apparent until you get into the live version of the game, which is why we've been finding them. Okay, now we as the community can do better, that instead of just posting it on TikTok or on Twitter and tagging Tyler, tagging Stephanie, and tagging everybody that's on the NRS team, you should go through the proper resources and actually report it. Okay? You need to go to the actual resources. That's the only thing you can do. We don't have a patch to beat on. Not yet, unfortunately. That is the only thing that you can do, and keep just reporting them. Okay? Now, with that in mind, why do you still have Cyrax available for Final Combat? What should have happened, because again, 7 days, mind you, 7 days to find the bug, 7 days to fix the bug, and then 7 days to pass the patch through the proper channels, because on Steam you can just pass the patch, right? But on console you actually have to go through PlayStation and Xbox for the patch to fully be released on the console versions. So it has to get approved by Sony and by Microsoft before a patch can come through. Okay, that takes time. Okay, now that's my devil's advocate. I explained my reasons. I explained why this is happening, why certain things are the way that they are. Okay, now the next thing. Now the real drama-filled portion. Okay, thank you for the follow. The real tea, the hot sipping tea. Are you all ready? You should have just banned Cyrax. You should have just banned Cyrax. Nobody was using Cyrax that way. Nobody was going to have Cyrax on a team that way. Just ban Cyrax for Final Combat. You did it for Shujinko when you faced against Xiao at ECT. You should have just banned Cyrax. Homelander should be banned, Misfortune, because he technically only came out for early access this week. He doesn't come out for full access until next week. But I won't touch on that because I don't know for sure, and I only want to speak facts here. But technically speaking, Homelander should not be available to play for Final Combat. So we'll leave it at that. NRS should have just banned Cyrax. Announcing that you are keeping Cyrax the same, yes, it's understandable because you can't implement a fix. But to allow it for competitive play is messing up literally. First one was in October. So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, June. You have messed up 8 months of grind, okay, and practice and comfortability after it was confirmed on the Final Combat that there would be no balance changes. Having Cyrax at Final Combat changes so much and changes all the predictions, but it's not just about the predictions. Truthfully, it's about the competitive integrity. And one thing that I do care a lot about is the competitive integrity in a lot of things. Okay, Final Combat is our pro tour for Mortal Kombat and NRS games. I do not agree with Cyrax being available for Final Combat, and this actually goes into my next point. I'm more upset at the fact that they made that announcement, and for me, it ruins the competitive integrity, number one. But more than anything, it really makes me feel like this entire tour has just not been as successful as it could have been. Okay. Has there been improvements along the way? Absolutely. They've listened. They've been more communicative on the tour side. They've done really cool things. Like, they're doing really cool profiles. Like, there are cool things that have happened during the tour and very hype moments in the tour. However, that does not mask that this tour is probably the least taken seriously out of all the current tours. I honestly feel like Arxis would have a lesser tour, and they don't even have that. Arc System Works, that does Guilty Gear, Undernight, and Grand Blue, have a way stronger, organized tour than what Mortal Kombat and Warner Brothers have given us. And I say this with like all respect, and I know that there has been like feedback that has been given, and I have even given my own feedback as well to help with getting it to the place that we want it to be. But for me, yesterday's announcement was such a wrong call. It was not a good call. And whoever is at fault for it, truthfully, at this point, it's everyone's fault on that side. And it is not okay that we have a competitive season the way that we have it. Okay? When Final Combat was announced, I felt like it was such an underwhelming announcement compared to the announcements that we see from Tekken, from Street Fighter, from even Arxis. And I bring up Arxis because Arxis is not even the top 3. They're not even the top 3 game. Guilty Gear is not even in the top 3 fighting games. It is Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat. So why do we have a league that is not suitable for a top 3 fighting game? That's the part that like makes me so upset. I could play Tekken or Street Fighter. I just don't like those games. I like Mortal Kombat. I like Guilty Gear Strive. I deserve to see this game thrive. And this is not trying to be like, oh, I deserve this and NRS deserves this. No. I am saying that the team at NRS has worked so hard and has been part of an IP that is so popular, because you know it's popular. We're able to sell 2 million copies of a game within 6 months. Okay? Like, we are that team. We are that game. You know? Like, that's the thing. I just am so shocked. The other thing that like people need to understand is that the point system in this game, the point system in the league was not a good point system. You had players that would qualify in top 8 and it wasn't even a guaranteed qualification. They needed to have the best placements offline and then the best placements online to be able to actually qualify. And I'm not saying it to be like, oh, it should be easier. I'm saying that as an integrity portion, like competitive integrity, this was not the way to go. It just was not the way to go. Okay? You should have just had like offline tournaments be the actual placements. Like, you made it, you placed. And then the online tournaments could be whatever points you wanted. And at least that was separate. And mind you, we had a desync issue for the final, I think it was the final, for the final online portion. So again, it's all about that integrity. And it's like, why are we getting the short end of the stick? Like, it doesn't make sense. Thank you so much for the follows. Now, mind you, I don't care about the prize pool. I don't care, because technically speaking, prize pool, it's really hard for Mortal Kombat to achieve $1 million prize pool like Street Fighter, or even a higher prize pool than Tekken. Like, that's a discussion point that I'm not even gonna hop into, because it doesn't matter in this situation. Okay? Now, What does matter is, once again, you making an announcement yesterday, a big change announcement, and people now have to go to Final Combat. They're spending a lot of money just going to Toronto, okay? And like, I love how we talk about numbers in Mortal Kombat and registration numbers. Do people not understand that we are living in a recession? Like, we are currently right now speed running to a recession. People are losing jobs in a recession. We are literally going down the drain when it comes to like these things. On top of the fact that registration for events right now are literally in the 200s. Do you know, this is the crazy part. Do you know that 10 years ago, it was only $50 to register for EVO? Do you know that, I want to say maybe even 5 years ago, it was only at most $70 to go to an event, to register to an event, okay? People who are competing, they're gonna pay it because they want to compete. What's up, yo, AJ? They want to compete, okay? But right now, EVO, people are like, oh, the EVO numbers are super bad. Yeah, dude, it's $200 just for the registration ticket for EVO. It's an experience, don't get me wrong. It's a really cool experience. EVO is literally in the 200s. That's not counting, okay, so 200, that's not counting for flight, which is minimum 200, okay? And you're there for 3 days, so imagine. So you're already at a $400 price tag to go to EVO, okay? You then have food in Las Vegas. Bro, food in Las Vegas is easily another $200. And that's if you're just dining out of like McDonald's, okay? All right? So that's already $600. I did math right. $600, okay? And then on top of the hotel cost, because it's not easy to spend, it's not easy to find a cheap hotel on the Las Vegas Strip where EVO is located. That's a minimum of $1,000. Like, that's a minimum of $1,000. Technically 500 if you split it with someone, more or less. So that is already, you're already in the 1,000 plus range for EVO. Why the heck do I want to go to Mortal Kombat, go 0-2, and literally just be there for 3 days pressing buttons? And not even pressing buttons, mind you, because EVO, as much as it's an experience, it's a con experience. So there's a bit of panels, there's a bit of like cooler like artist alley and stuff, but it's 3 days worth of that. You only press buttons, truthfully, when you are in tournament. So if you go 0-2, you just press buttons for literally a day. Literally a day. So when people talk about MK numbers and like, excuse me. Honestly, I'm gonna name names. When I think of Tom Brady talking about like, and I respect Tom. I do respect Tom, the heck out of Tom. When you talk about, okay, like Tom Brady saying, oh, NRS players, they were all bountifuls. Like, we had better numbers back then. You guys can't, like, you guys got to understand that, like, I know my history. Yeah, we know that they were better numbers back then. But guess what? We lived through a pandemic. We're suffering the consequences financially and economically from a pandemic, okay? And then, on top of all of that, prices have inflated where you, like, truthfully, everyone, truthfully, and this is not to try to, like, insult anybody or, like, hurt someone or anything like that, but it's literally a decision of, do you spend it on your hobby or do you pay rent? That's literally the reality of this right now. Do you spend the money for a hobby or do you spend that money for rent? You would be surprised how many people go to spend the money for the hobby. And listen, that's their respect. That's your right. That is your choice. We're not going to judge you for it. But also don't come at me and tell me that like, oh, NRS is dying or MK is dying, because bro, we want to play, but we're trying to also survive here. The real issue at the core of it is this a competition or is this a tour that is worth fighting for? Okay? And guess what? This year's tour is not worth fighting for. I'm sorry. It's not. It's not. You told me Street Fighter, I see Street Fighter's Pro Tour. I would be like, yeah, I want to travel to ECT. I want to travel to EVO. I want to travel to all these events because, F it, if I go 0-2, I know I went in with some really good, like, it was worth it, I look at this and I can't validly say it was worth it. I can't. I want to. I so badly want to. And I see the hard work that gets put behind it. I so badly want to see it, but I can't justify it. I can't justify it. And then yesterday's announcement left me so speechless that I was just like simmering on the thought. I was just like, Yeah, no, I can't justify it. I cannot justify it. I'm sorry. I love you all at NRS. Like, I really do. I think the team is amazing. I think that what you guys do is, like, it's there. Like, this game is amazing. Truthfully, to me, MK1 is one of my favorite fighting games right now. I love this more than MK11. I cannot justify continuing to go onto a tour that doesn't care about me as a player. I can't. And that is what it is at the end of the day. That is what that announcement means. So, everybody going to Final Combat and LCQ, I wish you the greatest of luck, okay? I wish you the greatest of luck. I want you to know that you worked hard to get to those positions, to that moment, okay? And you did what you needed to do to get in there. Please do not be disappointed if you lose to some serious, crazy stuff, because it's not your fault. It is not your fault that something like this, okay, is probably going to impede on how you prepare for Final Combat and how you do for Final Combat. Whatever happens, you should be proud that you made it there. You should be proud that you traveled to LCQ. You should be proud that you're going to be competing in LCQ. And you should be proud that you're going to be competing in the Final Combat if you qualified. You did that. No one else could take that away from you. But understand that when Final Combat happens, whatever happens, it is not your fault and you did whatever you could. It is not your fault that this league and this series is not up to par to what we deserve as a fan and as competitive players for the last 10 years in Mortal Kombat. And I say 10 years because we have kept this scene alive competitively since Mortal Kombat 11. With the amount of tournaments that we do on a daily, not a weekly, on a daily basis, okay? And the amount of time that we have spent on these games, thousands, millions of hours, and the amount of money too.